we all watch the TV, we're following the coverage and the impact on the global economy of the US-Israel intervention in Iran. So we've got soaring oil prices and fears about the impact on domestic energy prices and inflation. Regardless of what your view is on what Trump and Netanyahu did, it does seem to be causing economic carnage for pretty much every country across the world.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I think that Keir Starmer's actually done the right thing on this, and I sense it could be a huge. I mean, it's terrible to reduce these things to party politics. If you think of the horror that people in these countries are experiencing at the moment, but I do think that Keir Starmer's done the right thing in trying to stand back from it, and I think that it's potentially a huge blunder on the part of Nigel Farage to be so wholeheartedly in support of allowing America to set our foreign policy, a war that I think is hugely unpopular. I mean, I think it would be unpopular even if it wasn't having the impact it is um, in terms of people's lives, higher energy bills, potentially people are going to be paying more for mortgages, there's um, food shortages potentially, and for what seems to be a war that none of the parties that started it have really got can actually at this point explain what the exit strategy is or what they've done it for. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary stuff.
What seems to have happened here is that the US have assassinated um, the so-called supreme leader of Iran. He's been replaced by his more hardline son, and his son is basically in a situation where his family, because I think it's maybe his wife and others as well as his father, been murdered by the US and Israel. I'm not convinced that that's really a recipe for him wanting to sit around the table and negotiate with the US. I think he's going to be wanting vengeance.
No, I mean, it's just impossible to see that they've said this is a regime change war, which the only thing that can mean is they're going to go in, boots on the ground. They're going to try and take over a country of 90 million people. It's not going to happen. So what's the alternative? That you have to think the likely end point will be they'll obliterate the place with missiles, and at some point Trump will claim a victory and walk away because real tanked the stock market and sent energy prices up. And I think the most interesting thing is he's completely U-turned on the whole point of Donald Trump, which was no foreign wars. He said during the election campaign in America, vote for Biden and he'll invade. He'll start a war with Iran, and it's quite
Once
astonishing, really, that he's now done that himself.
once he stops, so he can claim 9 foreign wars that he stopped.
Yeah.
Do you not feel, Doug, that Trump's approach here is more Bill Clinton than it is George Bush? Clinton was always about, bombing countries but not putting boots in the ground, whereas Bush was clearly about
Yeah.
regime change.
I think the problem with this is, I doubt you'd get MD here is going to defend the Iranian regime.
No,
Um,
horrific.
but if you're going to, in some ways, if you're going to remove it, then you need to go the whole hog. If you're going to do it, you need to do it, and this isn't doing it because you've just said
His son,
his son's just taken over. So it increasingly looks like this wasn't really about regime change. It's just flexing his muscles in the Middle East. It's almost like he's woke up one morning and thought, you know what, I'm going to bomb Iran.
I mean, I
Um,
think the truth is that this is a war that Israel wanted more than.
yeah,
I don't think
it-
America wanted this war particularly. I think that they've been kind of forced into it.
well, but if you're going to do it, you need to do it properly. But no, there is no appetite to do it properly. No one wants, I'm sure America doesn't want its troops to be bogged down in another, Middle East war. Iran itself would be a completely different proposition from Iraq as well. It's just, I can't imagine how we would bring about regime change even through military force. And ultimately, of course, this is all taking place against the backdrop of these elections coming up. And it's funny what John said about how Keir Starmer, you think he's done the right thing. He's done quite well. Who do you think is going to get the blame for their petrol prices going up? Who do you think is going to get the blame for the energy prices going up at the ballot box come May?
And that's the
It'll
key
be
issue.
Labour.
It's
know?
about prolonging and worsening the cost of living
Yeah.
crisis. Just at the point where Labour were starting to say, well, look, interest rates are coming down. We've got inflation under control. We're slowly turning the corner. Looks like energy bills might rocket again.
Yeah.
And, despite the fact that I think Keir Starmer's done the right thing in distancing the UK from the US on this one particular foreign policy move, it will be Keir Starmer gets the blame, Labour that gets the blame. It's probably in Starmer's interest to come up with a pretty comprehensive cost of living package in order to head off that criticism.
I mean, he's probably not distanced himself enough, has he? And what can you really? There's a limit to how much a government can do in the face of the global oil supplies being cut off. I don't think that there's really anything that you can do to mitigate that. The whole world suffers from this, apart from possibly Benjamin Netanyahu seems to want to destabilize this region as much as possible. He seems to be the only winner. Everyone else loses, and it's pretty incredible, really, that America have been led into it.
And like the point that you made, Doug, Trump's got such a short attention span. He never sees anything through.
No.
So it was Venezuela, then it was Greenland, now it's Iran. He just goes from country to country.
Where will it be next?
Well, he's already been talking about invading Cuba while this stuff's been ongoing.
Does he just get the map out and a dart and then go for it?
I think he's a guy who realises he's got 3 years left and he's searching for a legacy. I mean, he does have a legacy, a terrible legacy, but he wants a sort of Reagan-style foreign policy legacy, but he doesn't have the temperament to see anything through.
No, because he's, like you say, he's got the attention span of a goldfish, and I think, if he thinks this is going to define his era, then I don't think he's going to like what that definition is, unless he's prepared to see it through. You've got to see it through, but he won't. Next week it'll be somewhere else. What you say,
seeing it through
Cuba
is a disaster for Trump, but nobody in America seriously sees Iran as even in the top 100 of their
things that they want dealt with.
They do not.
They want energy prices to come down.
Petrol prices. So it's disaster for Trump.
But
always,
this time next week he'll be on to something else, and that's obviously not really a way you can govern, especially an American president. But all the while, ultimately it's people at their petrol pump. There's already talk of people stocking up and panic buying, and it's amazing. A bomb drops in Tehran, and it might end up deciding the Scottish election. It's
also as well,
butterfly wing effect.
Given the terrible relationship now between the Prime Minister and the Presidency, whiskey tariffs getting lifted anytime soon.
I mean, I think we do also where is our moral authority? Like America looks like America bombed a school where 150 kids got killed. The human cost in Iran is absolutely devastating. The human cost in Lebanon is devastating. And actually, despite the fact there seems to be a bit of a blackout on information, it looks like also, Tel Aviv, ordinary Israelis are also under pretty significant bombing now as well. So it's the human cost of this stuff is horrific, and it does seem extraordinary that there's so little said. In the past there always seemed to at least be some kind of semblance of a reason given, or attempts to get a UN resolution, even if it wasn't successful. With this, it literally is just, this is what America and Israel are doing. If you're not with us, you're against us. You're the stuff with Trump belittling Keir Starmer in social media. I mean, how far do you go before you just say, look, this is unacceptable?
Of course,
don't care if America voted for him. You need to, but you can't have someone like this at the helm of the biggest and most powerful economy and military in the world.
He could change his mind in Starmer next week though, because we've seen
Yeah,
that before.
he
Like,
probably will.
uh, I think there's midterms in the US. Is it this year or is it next year?
Yes, this
Or is
year,
it
yeah.
midterm? So I think probably maybe the best thing that could happen there is that the Republicans actually win midterms, and he might be able to focus more on domestic issues. I think this is a worry. If he's hamstrung domestically, he continues to see the foreign, the global stage is his stage. Maybe if
I mean,
the path was open for him to bring in more domestic
I think it would be
reform.
better if the Democrats won in the midterms, because I think they control the purse strings then in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah.
funds available for
he is just
war.
I mean, he's an out of control ultra narcissist. It's incredibly dangerous to have someone like Donald Trump in the position that he's in. But it's difficult. He's been democratically elected, but it's potentially devastating for that. I think we're probably in more danger of a nuclear war today than we ever have been over the last 50, 60 years.
What a cheery thought, John.